Okay, good evening, everyone. My clock just turned 7 p.m., so we are right on time to begin. And we still see a number of folks are still signing in, but so far so good. We're about halfway there, so expect to see some more people signing in here as we get started. So I'm going to start just by welcoming you tonight. It's wonderful to see lots of longtime supporters and a lot of new names in our participants list here this evening. I'm going to start with a brief overview of how this program is going to run tonight. We'll begin with some housekeeping, just general Zoom mechanics. And we'll share a little bit about the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition. We'll introduce a couple special guests that we have with us this evening, and then we will introduce the video and launch right into watching that, viewing it. We're really excited to share it with you. And then we'll return here after the video for a short Q&A session. So, for the housekeeping, I will say, just welcome. I'm Carol Haskins from Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition. I'm the executive director here. And tonight's program is being brought to you as a Zoom webinar, which you already know. What you might not know is that this is a webinar format versus a Zoom meeting format. So the functionality is a little bit different than you might be used to if you've attended Zoom cocktail parties and such. So our participants are joined with your video function is turned off. We have you on mute, and we ask that we keep you muted so there's not as much conflict in terms of the audio quality. If you've never participated in a webinar format, when you hover down at the bottom of the screen that you're viewing, you'll see a couple options pop up. There's a raise hand function. We're not planning to use the raised hand function, but if you do by chance raise your hand, we'll try and keep tabs on that. We are using the chat function, so there'll be a little number that pops up if there's new messages in the chat. You're welcome to enter comments, questions in there. And there's also a Q&A function down at the bottom that will open a slightly different version of a chat, which will use that as well as the chat function for the Q&A session at the end. Let's see, what else is in there that you would need to know? I think that's most of it. Hopefully everyone is having good audio quality and can hear us okay. So with that, I'm gonna jump right into welcoming you tonight. We are thrilled to have you join us. Again, my name is Carol Haskins. I'm the executive director of the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition. And I've been around here for quite some time, since about 2008. So really excited to see lots of old friends and welcome new friends here this evening. Typically this time of year, we are gathering our friends somewhere on a beautiful property and celebrating our rivers, hosting an annual benefit. And just like so many events this year, we're not holding one due to COVID. And we're particularly, sad to not be able to do this year, as this is our 20th anniversary. So just like so many, we've come up with a creative way to celebrate your rivers, our shared water resources, the aquifer, our drinking water. And we're doing that by, instead of bringing you together on a common ground, we're going to take you out into the watershed on a couch tour. So we're going to take you to some of our favorite sites throughout the watershed. We've got some wonderful tour guides that are going to take you along the way. And before we do that, I just want to mention that tonight's celebration, tonight's viewing is in conjunction with World Rivers Day, which is being celebrated globally tomorrow on September 27th. World Rivers Day is a celebration of World Water Days, or World Waterways, sorry. It undoubtedly highlights the many values of rivers and strives to increase public awareness and encourages the improvement of stewardship of rivers around the world. So rivers in virtually every country face an array of threats, and only through our active involvement and your active involvement can we ensure their health for years ahead. To help us celebrate tonight, I would like to introduce a couple of very special guests. We have some friends joining us from the south coast of Oregon. They are Ann Velisis and Tim Palmer. Tim and Ann are both authors. They're both award-winning authors, and hopefully they've popped up on the screen here and you can see them. Tim is an author of 26, probably more at this point, right? Books about river conservation, adventure travel. I've got a number of them sitting here in my office. This is one of our favorites.
Yeah.
Because it features the Pomperaug. This is Rivers of America. This is a collection of photographs. There's the Pomperaug right there. And I'm actually staring at a photo just across the wall from me that's very similar to that, which I'm thrilled to have here. He also has books about forests and trees, and was here just a few years ago to speak about the twilight of hemlocks. And if you've ever had the privilege of hearing Tim speak, he's definitely a dynamic public speaker on a range of environmental topics, incredible landscape photographer, and is long been passionate about rivers and conservation and travel. He and Ann actually just got back from some travels throughout Montana and the Pacific Northwest. Ann is an independent scholar and also an award-winning author. And I have one of your books here too. Wow. Here it is, Discovering the Unknown, The History of America's Wetlands. See, Ann Velisis, it's right there. And they've gone on many river adventures together. They both work tirelessly as advocates focused on conservation of rivers, salmon, birds. And Ann is one of our hometown delights. Her mother, Jan Taylor, lives here in Southbury, is one of your tour guides tonight. And they're gonna say a little bit about PRWC's founders. Mentioned our 20th anniversary. Dr. Mark Taylor was our founder, one of the couple gentlemen that got the organization going. And then Tim is gonna speak to the importance of water conservation group like ours. So take it away, Ann and Tim.
Great. Thank you so much, Carol. Hello, everyone. Tim and I are delighted to be with you tonight to join this celebration of World Rivers Day and the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition's 20th anniversary. I just want to start by saying a few words about Coalition founder, Dr. Mark Taylor, who is my stepdad, who many of you knew was a truly extraordinary person. I was recently flipping through my journal and came across some notes from a conversation I had with him in the months before he died. He was reflecting on his wonderful life and his various careers as a medical researcher, a doctor, and finally a river conservationist. As children, we're often used to thinking about how our parents influence us, and I'm deeply grateful for the ways that Mark influenced me. But it's rewarding, deeply rewarding, when the sharing goes both ways. And Mark told me that it was a trip to Montana that he took with me and Tim that helped to inspire him to really get into river conservation. Tim and I had wanted to share our love of rivers with Mom and Mark, so we invited them to join us on a canoe and raft trip at the edge of Glacier National Park. We started up near the Canadian border and paddled south for 80 miles, enjoying crystal clear water, mountain views, and actually grizzly tracks along the way too. Ever since Mark had been a Boy Scout, he'd been intrigued by hiking trails and the way that the paths through the woods connected different parts of the landscape. But on this canoe trip, Mark experienced firsthand just how it was that rivers are threads that connect the landscape. And it prompted him to begin to consider the Pomperaug, his own backyard river, in a whole new way. He wondered more about its sources, its sub-watersheds, its aquifers, its water quality. How did it all connect? And then he started to assemble maps. Of course, he loved maps, and friends, Dick Leavenworth and Larry Pond, and then new friends throughout the watershed who joined him with enthusiasm to start PWRC 20 years ago. I mentioned Mark's careers because he brought important elements of each of these to the founding of the Watershed Coalition that remain part of the group's culture and mission today. First, he was a scientist, and that made him recognize the profound value of being able to conduct research and monitoring and to marshal science to help people understand and find solutions to rivers' problems and the threats that face them. Second, he was a doctor who truly loved people in the community, and I think he brought a doctoring ethic to the conservation of the Pomperaug in two ways. First, in seeing the river as a lifeline of the community, the artery that everyone needed to keep healthy, to have a healthy community into the future. And second, is the river bringing health and well-being to people in a bigger, broader sense and scale than he'd ever experienced as a physician. Finally, he loved and was passionate about his work as a river conservationist, as a kind of culminating career. So I'm extremely pleased that today PWRC continues these traditions of science, caring, and passion. And on this 20th anniversary, even though it's a little bit weird, I know Mark would have been incredibly proud of the critical work that the Watershed Coalition has continued to do, and hopefully will carry forth far into the future. So I'm really excited to be with you all to celebrate.
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments now as well. Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Anne. First, I'd like to say how much I appreciate the comments that Anne has made, and to reinforce how much we recognize and appreciate the work done by Mark Taylor. I had the great advantage of knowing him not only as a pioneering river conservationist, but as part of my family. Lucky me. We certainly all benefited from his life and from who he was in so many ways. From my perspective with a lifetime in river conservation, I'd like to emphasize here how important it is for all of us everywhere to protect and restore our rivers and streams. These are the lifelines of our country, the water supplies that we all have to maintain, the centerpieces of natural beauty, and the sources of community connections everywhere. I'm extremely proud and grateful that your coalition has been formed and remains active and central to this stream's future. I found that invariably, rivers that have an organization dedicated to the stream's life and protection thrive in ways that other ways simply do not. My start in river conservation began with an effort similar to yours on a river called Pine Creek in north central Pennsylvania. At that time, I was a student in landscape architecture at Penn State University, and a forestry professor was motivated to learn about his watershed, which led him to become concerned about its health and ultimately to help organize an advocacy group, much as you have done here. Those early studies of Pine Creek led to municipal sewage plant upgrades, better on-site disposal systems, protection of state-owned wildlands, acquisition of critical open space, and floodplain zoning for the entire watershed. I know that you've had some of the same successes and that the challenges continue both here and there. Local engagement in the form that you do is essential if we're to sustain and restore the values of our streams. Now a changing climate makes our work for clean water, restored flows, riparian open space, and floodplain protection all the more important. Everything we've been trying to do for decades must now be done more, better, and faster. While state and federal involvement is important, the main need is always for local citizen involvement, education, and advocacy, working from the bottom up. And so I encourage you to engage here ever more deeply. I've worked all over the country helping local groups and writing about conservation efforts. And I know that your experience and possibilities here are extraordinary. I hope you can continue to build on the legacy of Mark Taylor and other dedicated people who started your organization, so that we can pass this river and this organization on to the next generation with confidence that the work will continue. It's great to be with you tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing your wonderful new video about the watershed that you call home. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ann and Tim, so much for those very inspiring words and fond memories of Mark. I have right next to me here this book, Lifeline, Conservation, which I know was one that Mark probably had by his bedside as he got this organization going that Tim wrote, and obviously speak very, very passionately about the importance of groups like ours. And it sounds like you guys really had a wonderful influence on Mark, and you were able to show him a river. And that was something that he always resonated with us, was show people the river, show them how beautiful it is, and get them to connect with it. And so that's what we're striving to do here tonight, is to take you a little tour around the watershed, some places that you might not know. We know Tim and Ann has seen many of these places, but there's probably a few they haven't seen either in their travels when they come east, and hopefully we can get them there the next time they're out. So tonight's video it's only about 12 minutes, and it was filmed almost entirely on an iPhone by our outreach coordinator, Haley McKeever. And we do have some bonus footage that was taken from a drone by M3 Media Productions, who's located here in Woodbury. And I want to recognize our tour guides. We have past interns, Dana Desiru, Matt Rose, Naomi Robert, Dylan Larkin, volunteers including Donna Lesh and Jan Taylor, as well as a few board members, John Patari, Sarah Lynn Leavenworth, and David Taylor. We've made every attempt tonight to make sure the viewing will stream to the best resolution possible. We've done numerous tests, numerous trial runs, but we recognize that there are fluctuations in upload and download speeds between devices, between service providers, between time of day. And so, like I said, we've made every attempt. We are going to share in the chat a couple links. We've uploaded the video to YouTube as well as to Vimeo. So if for some reason you're getting a lag, the audio and the video aren't syncing up, you're getting a granular, choppy resolution, feel free to hop over to either one of those streaming services and watch the video there. We'll join back here about 7:30, it looks like, with 12 minutes of video for a question and answer session. But before I hit play, I would like to raise a glass. It's here. It has PRWC on it. I swear, there it is. There it is. It's also got another logo. And just make a quick toast in PRWC's 20th anniversary and in memory of Mark Taylor, our founder, river steward extraordinaire, really a true river hero. For more than 20 years, our staff volunteers here have worked tirelessly to ensure the health of the Pomperaug River and the many rivers and streams that flow into it. After the event, I would like to invite you to also participate in our Funded Need auction, which is raising funds to support things like our internship, our youth conservation corps, educational programs, watershed monitoring, restoration initiatives, and the development for advocacy for sustainable water and land use policies, as well as a host of other work that we're doing here locally. So without further ado, cheers, and I'm going to hit play. Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition was founded by local residents in response to threats that land use changes would have on the local water resources. For more than 20 years, Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition's staff and volunteers have worked tirelessly to ensure the health of these water resources, including the Pomperaug River, the tributaries that flow into it, as well as the aquifer that sustains the flow and drinking water supplies for residents in the community and neighboring towns. I'm here at Longmeadow Pond in Bethlehem, Connecticut. This pond is the headwaters for the Weekapimi River, which flows together with the Nonawag River to form the Pomperaug River. And these tributaries come down from Bethlehem, Connecticut, through Woodbury into Southbury to form the Pomperaug River, which then flows into Lake Zor and eventually flows on through the Housatonic out into Long Island Sound.
Here we are at the Skilton Road Gorge, and behind me is the dry stone arch that supported the road up until a few years ago when Watertown had preserved the site. And we had come across this doing a survey back in the beginning of this century. And it was part of the PRWC's wanting to do all the stream surveys for all the tributaries in the watershed. And I had grown up, playing in rivers, ponds, and swamps. So I was really looking forward to actually getting my feet wet. And I never felt comfortable that I could do that going through private property and such until I was a volunteer holding a clipboard doing the stream survey. So that was my real introduction to citizen science, and I learned all the different terms to describe the riverbed and the flow, riffles and ripples and glides, and many others that I had forgotten. So I would really encourage anybody who wants to participate in a great recreational activity and at the same time be furthering the protection of our wonderful watershed.
Hello. Today we're at Nonawag Falls, which is behind me, and at the headwaters of the Nonawag River. This area is a major feeder into the Pomperaug and recharges the aquifer for the Pomperaug River watershed. Years ago, this area was the home to the Nonawag Indians in the summer because of its tremendous fishing and hunting capabilities. The Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition's worked very hard to protect and monitor areas like this. And we're showing it to you today so that you can see how important these natural settings are to good water, which leads to good health.
I'm here in the center of Woodbury at Three Rivers Park. This park gets its name as being the point where the Wikipimi and Nonawag rivers flow together and the Pomperaug River begins. We're also just about in the center of the watershed. The tributaries begin about 10 miles north of here at the top of the watershed and flow down about 13 miles from here to Lake Zor. One of the things that makes this park particularly interesting is that it is the site of one of our 3 USGS streamflow gauges that monitor flow in real time. And it's also a site that really shows the diverse land uses within the watershed. We have agriculture nearby in the field right next to me. There's athletic fields, there's a residential neighborhood. Just a stone's throw from here is the commercial center of Woodbury. And this is a really rich site for wildlife and is a great spot for fishing.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lynn Leavenworth, and I'm one of the board members of PRWC. We're here today at the Trolley Bed Preserve in Woodbury. It's approximately 250 acres of open space land. This was secured in 2016 from the Aquarian Reservoir thanks to a large grant from DEEP. It was the largest grant that Woodbury has ever received. This area is approximately a 3.7 mile walk down and back. It's from the old trolley area that when trolleys used to come from Waterbury through Middlebury to Woodbury back before cars, taking people to Quasi Amusement Park and down into the town of Woodbury. It's A very beautiful area, lots of birds, frogs, flowers. I highly recommend it for walking. I do it often with my own children.
I'm standing down at the Pomperaug River at a really neat point where there are a lot of different land uses adjacent to the river. We have the golf course across the river. We have Ewald Park where you have baseball fields. And we have Gainfield Elementary School across the street. We used to bring the elementary students down to the river many years ago when we were in the schools where we would read a book, work with the land use model, bring the kids down to the river to look at the flow. That's just one of many ways in which the Coalition is involved with the community. I think the Coalition does a great job helping the townships within the watershed manage the different issues related to both surface and groundwater.
So we're here at Cedarland Park. This is the site of our riparian buffer restoration project. We started this in 2013 in order to improve the water quality of this tributary to the Pomperaug River. At the time, there were a lot of invasive species like mugwort and watercress that were really choking off the ecosystem here. So what we did is we partnered up with Earth Tones Nursery and we replaced it with native species like Indian hemp and purple coneflower. And this allows it to have a more natural ecosystem and hopefully improve the water quality of the Pomperaug River.
Once the riparian buffer was installed, it needed yearly maintenance. So we hired a youth conservation corps, which was a group of high school students from the area. And they came and with an intern removed the invasives that had grown since the riparian buffer had been installed to kind of maintain and give the new native growth the opportunity to really establish itself.
I'm standing on the banks of the beautiful Pomperaug River at Platt Preserve in Southbury, Connecticut. It's a beautiful day, and I have been a volunteer for the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition for many years, and my late husband, Dr. Mark Taylor, was a founder of the coalition along with some other wonderful men. He was passionate about the river and the clean water, and that is the goal. And he did add a bent of science to the organization, and the goal is to maintain our clean water and river.
Welcome to the Audubon Bent of the River. This is a 700-acre nature sanctuary, important to aquatic and terrestrial wildlife, and is also an education center with nature trails throughout their property.
This is Audubon Bent of the River, one of our 13 sampling locations across the watershed, and here we're sampling for bacteria levels, nitrate, and conductivity. And basically gathering this data and giving it to CT Deep to update them on whether these rivers and streams meet Connecticut's water quality standards, and also informing the public on whether various recreation areas in these streams are safe for boating, fishing, swimming, etc. And also identifying possible places where there may be some pollution.
We hope that you've enjoyed this tour, starting in Bethlehem at the top of the watershed, as we've traveled down the Wikipemie River and the Nonawag River, through the center of Woodbury, down through Southbury, to this point where I now stand on the edge of Lake Zor, where the Pomperaug River joins the Housatonic, and from here we'll flow to Long Island Sound. As you picture that water traveling downstream, we want to share with you a quote from a colleague in Pennsylvania who said, "Water has a voice and it carries a message downstream of who we are and how we care for the land." Today we've shared with you just a brief glimpse of what the Pomperaug River watershed has to offer. We encourage you to get out and explore the beautiful scenery throughout the valley and invite you to be an active steward and to support PRWC's mission to ensure clean and healthy, plentiful water for future generations. I did it. What'd you think? Beautiful community we have here, isn't it? Beautiful river and waters. Really does just, you know, tip of the watershed as far as some of the natural beauty, the hiking trails that are all around here. We work very closely with our conservation partners like the Audubon Bench of the River, Southbury Land Trust. Seen a couple of their properties. We also work closely with the Roxbury Land Trust, as well as Flanders Nature Center, Watertown Land Trust, and many, many others in working together to preserve our quality of our water that sustains life here. I was getting some text message feedback from our staff that are behind the scenes here. We know the video may have had a little bit of lag. We just want to remind folks there is a link for best viewing. You can watch on Vimeo. That link is in the chat. And there's also a link on YouTube. So if you'd like to watch it again in the best resolution possible, you're welcome to do so. And after the event here, we will be sharing, we will share that link directly with you. So if you want to pass it on to friends and neighbors, you're welcome to do so. And we're also going to post a link in the chat to the Fund a Need auction. It's on 32auctions.com/PRWC20. And there's an opportunity to support some of those programs, as well as to, I'm going to reach over on my side here to grab some PRWC swag so you can show your support for the organization as you're out tromping around the watershed. That's very crooked, well-worn hat with our PRWC logo. We also have some new tote bags. So as you're out there, you know, hiking a trail or heading to the river, we definitely encourage you to show your love of your river. If there's any questions, we see lots of great comments here. Very interesting, thank you. Great job, congratulations PRWC, excellent, great job. We can post that link in the chat again, that would be great. It's coming up, there it is, Ann Westerman. That was wonderful, thank you so much. What else did I miss here? Let me scroll up in the chat and see if there's any other comments or questions. Hi, Len. Thank you. Okay. Guess I'm not seeing a whole lot of questions here. So tomorrow's World Rivers Day. We definitely, it's going to be a nice day out. It's going to be one of our last warmer days here before the spring. So get out there, enjoy the watershed. We are going to be posting the summary list of the sites you saw tonight on our website, as well as a couple other favorite spots that didn't make the cut. There really are, there's so many beautiful places. And we also will mention that we are going to be doing some stream sampling in October. The date isn't quite set. We'll do a webinar training, and then we'll actually go out to the rivers and streams to a few different sites, and we're going to collect things called macroinvertebrates, which are an indicator of water quality. And we still have another round of bacteria sampling we'll be doing this season in October, and we're pulling our stream temperature data loggers in October as well. So there are still some opportunities to be involved in the stream sampling. And I will also put in a plug for the Woodbury Townwide Cleanup Day, which is the first Saturday in October. Oh gosh, I believe it's 8:30, meet down at the Hollow for your assignment. There's a place to register online. If you go to the Woodbury Conservation Commission page on the Woodbury Town website, you can find more information there. And there's some great ways to get involved and be an active steward. I'll just do one last little glance here, see if there's any questions about the watershed. Oh, we've got someone viewing from Long Meadow. That's wonderful. Okay. So I guess we're not seeing too many questions here. So with that, oh, I see virtual assignments for the cleanup. So go to that town website. That Jeff Sherman is organizing the cleanups, and they will assign you a road if you don't have one already. If you want to go out and clean up along a roadway, there's also river spots as well. Yes, Long Meadow Pond, there's been a lot of folks up there this year. There's a lot more crowds there as people are trying to find ways to enjoy the outdoors. We definitely saw that too. Just out on the trails, land trust properties were particularly heavily traveled this year. I personally was out there a lot this spring, just trying to be outside and enjoy the outdoors. And it was, it forced me to go find some new trails that I hadn't explored before. So one of the preserves, for example, that didn't make the cut tonight, but we've shared some wonderful pictures of it this summer on our Facebook page, has been Marzall Preserve on Carmel Hill Brook, which is one of the Flanders Nature Center and Land Trust properties. There's only room for 4 cars. So without a doubt, you're going to be socially distanced there, and it's a beautiful little spot. Back to that cleanup, the question about the fall cleanup day. It's Saturday, October 3rd, and you can contact Jeff Sherman at 203-263-5408 or jjsherman@yahoo.com. There's a comment in the comments in the chat here, so if you want to get involved with that, you can. Pete Raza, hi. It's good to hear from you. Good question. What is the effect of drought on the insects, plant life, and overall health of the river? Obviously, the river's low. I haven't checked the stream flow in a couple days, but last Monday it was about 5 CFS, which is well below our 3rd threshold trigger for conservation, for voluntary conservation. And we've seen flows similar to this back in 2010, and what we observed was those insects, they tended to be very small because anything that was large enough to hatch and merge as an adult really did. So we had a still interesting diversity, but everything was concentrated into those deeper pools where they could hold. And we're definitely seeing the impacts of the low water right now. As we start to see all the plant life. The trees are turning yellow very quickly, leaves are falling. And then the overall health of the river, it's been a warm year, it's been a dry year. So we are seeing those stressors as far as, what the direct impact and the long-term impact is, that's part of what we're trying to evaluate. So we'll have a little more sense of that as we get into the beginning of next year, because some of the monitoring and assessment with the fish community and some of the other chemistry that happens by Connecticut DEP was put on hold. They were not conducting their monitoring and assessment this year because of COVID safety and the added layers of precaution that their team would have to take, which would have involved riding in separate vehicles, and that would have just added a huge amount of cost. So when they come out and do things like electrofishing, that really wouldn't have been possible in the current condition for safety this year. So we'll be seeing more of that impact next year when those assessments resume. So hopefully that answers that question a little bit. We are keeping tabs on updates from the interagency drought work group at the state of Connecticut. At the end of the month here in just a couple of days, we'll have some more summary data. And with the lack of rain in the forecast, wouldn't be overly surprised if the northern counties end up into a stage 3 drought condition, and you're going to start hearing a lot more about drought on the news other than just from the meteorologist. So if you can find some creative ways to save water, please do. Definitely this time of year, you really don't need to be irrigating. Your lawn's starting to go dormant. So no real need to be watering right now anyway. Definitely be avoiding those bonfires. I want to do that this time of year. Let's see. Any other comments, questions? I saw a comment from Tim saying, Haley, great job on your videography. We can't wait to see what's coming from you next. And we found a little future cinematographer here. So we'll be looking forward to putting that into great use going forward. Okay. So just a reminder again, we'll send out those links so you can view the video in its full glory. And please do visit the 32 Auctions website and make a contribution to help support this work that we continue to do on your behalf to make sure you have clean water for yourself and for your kids and grandkids and so on and so on. We're delighted to be working here on your behalf. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're always just an email away, info@pomperaug.org. If you have a question that you'd like to follow up on, you can find lots of information on our website at www.pomperaug.org. And we always welcome you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. So you'll be seeing what we're up to in real time. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining tonight. Cheers.